All right. Well, it is now noon, so everyone want to get started?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thank you.
Hold on, Holly. Hold on. I gotta do my intro.
Okay.
So this is Marissa. I'm the marketing events coordinator for the Wood County Museum, and we would just like to welcome everyone to this month's virtual history series. We would like to thank our sponsors, who are Edwin and Irma Wolf and Lynn and Betty Wineland, for their support for this series, and as well as all of the generous T-card holders for their generous donation for the series as well. After this November talk, we do have one more talk in December with Hal Brown about women's sports. So make sure to tune in next month for that. With that, we do have Holly Kirkendall. She is the Wood County Museum curator, and she is going to be doing her presentation today over the archive collection. Holly, take it away.
Well, hello. I know most of you already, except for Tammy. So hello, Tammy. I'm Holly. I'm a curator of the Wood County Museum, as Marissa said. And this particular talk is going to be somewhat of an informative discussion on what we hold here at the Wood County Museum in our archives, explaining a little bit about what we have, how we obtain it, and how we use it. All right, so I usually like to start out by defining what is an archives. As you can see here, I have it's a collection of historical documents or records providing information about a place, institution, or group of people. Now, our archives is pretty interesting because, and I'm going to make sure, so I'm not the most tech savvy person. I want to see if I can do this. Are you guys able to see this document? Can you see the spreadsheet I just put up?
Yes, I can, okay. Or no, I can only see your PowerPoint presentation.
All right, I don't know how to do that. Our archives is one of the things I would like to point out that we often, when I am met with questions about from researchers, the things that are held by the Wood County Historical Society are predominantly donated to the museum. So this is not something, we are not in a capacity or a large enough capacity that we go out and we actively collect things. We do not purchase items for our archives. It is really what the local community members have deemed important and that they would like for us to share or to save. And so I am usually, and prior to me becoming curator 9 years ago, the process was a little bit different. But since 2012, our policy is that I have to be contacted directly and made an offer of donation to our collection. So donors call the museum. Sometimes they email me. Sometimes they will contact one of my coworkers in various situations and tell us that they have something that they would like to donate to the collection. And we have what's known as a collections policy. And so it is a set of rules that are necessary for us to follow that fit within the scope of collecting and our overall strategic plan and mission of the museum itself. And so if you are interested in ever donating to the museum, your first point of contact should either be calling me directly or emailing me with your potential donation. And actually, Paula is on this chat. She recently has done this, so she knows the process of being in contact with me. Once you're in contact with me for a donation, then it goes to what is known as our collections committee. And that committee, they really ultimately have the final say on whether or not we bring something into the collection. This is a committee of 7 people who are members or on the board of the Historical Society, and they review what is being offered based on the policy itself, and they make a decision whether or not to accept something into the collection or to deny something acceptance into the collection. Now, one thing I will say is that I do not ever like to send somebody away without other options. If it's something that does not necessarily fit into what it is that we try to do here at the Wood County Museum, I will always try to offer another organization that might be interested in a potential donation. And on our collections committee, we actually have Marty Pratt from the Downtown Library and Nick Pavlik from the BGSU Archives, Corinne Gordon, who is the site manager for Carter Farm, Millie Broca and Hal Brown, who are members of Wood County Genealogy. So we have a line in communication with a lot of different people locally. So if it is not something that we need or we want, we definitely can point you in the direction of somebody who would want your item. So the part that everyone is waiting for is what is in the collection. I don't know how to, I wish that I knew how to share these documents. So we do have an inventory of what is in our archives. It is something that a volunteer had worked on for many years. And today's talk is going to be a little different. I am not going to just sit at my desk. I'm actually going to have Marissa help me, and we're going to go across the hall, and I am going to actually point some things out in the archives, what they are, how I use them, and what to do if you have questions for research. One thing I will say is that I am not a degreed archivist. I do not have an IMLS degree. My degrees are in public history, but I do understand collections management. I have worked in collections management for a long time. And so the way things are organized, we are able to find and locate, but how we use it's a little different. We are not to the point of digitization. This is definitely a long-term goal, but as any person who works in the library will tell you, it's an awful lot of work to digitize and do the metadata and upload all of the information into a searchable database. And so that probably would require another staff person. But I never want people to think that we are not approachable for help. I always welcome questions, and I will do the best I can using what we have to answer those questions. But unfortunately, it is not something where I can allow people to go across the hall and look at stuff for these reasons. But if you're listening to this talk today and you know someone who is thinking about reaching out to me here at the museum with questions, and I always welcome questions. I'm not sure how effective I'm going to be and able to answer them, but I definitely will put you in the right direction of where you need to go. So this picture here kind of shows you the first thing, the first section, and we'll see this. We have been donated had donated an exorbitant amount of school textbooks to the point where I really do not take them anymore unless we have documented confirmation of who owned these textbooks. It'd have to be someone pretty notable because understandably, we have a huge collection of textbooks. We do have a lot of medical books as well. I think that every country doctor in Wood County passed away in the 1970s and pretty much donated everything from their offices to us, which is wonderful because I do get questions about doctors in different hospitals that were here locally. We do have a lot of local history books. Wood County Museum, I really pride myself that we have a great relationship with Wood County Genealogy. They're a phenomenal organization, and if you are not familiar with them, they're located in the courthouse. I highly recommend, if you're interested in doing your own genealogy work, getting in touch with them. But the local history books, some of them they have produced, and some were produced 75 to 100 years ago. Those are really helpful when we are doing initial planning for like living history, which is in August, or I have a general research question, or I'm planning an exhibit, and you'll see when we go across the hall how I have that laid out. We have a lot of cookbooks. We have law books. We have we have more Bibles than we probably need. That's one thing that I really don't necessarily take either, just because we have an abundance. General ledger books from businesses in the area. We have a lot of magazines and autograph books. Most of this stuff predates me. A lot of times things like magazines, sometimes cookbooks, maybe encyclopedias. I will contact our friends at the Pop Culture Library. That is one person I forgot to mention. Dana Nemeth is an archivist at the Pop Culture Library, and she is on our collections committee. And so if we get things that would be more beneficial for researchers at BGSU's libraries, then I usually offer it to her first before it's something that we take. The other thing that we do have, and we'll see in a minute, are infirmary records. And I am pretty proud of the work that we have done in at least identifying what we have and how we have been using these records to create, for comfort and convenience, and hopefully to be finishing this book sometime this year, early next year, on the poorhouse system of Ohio. I routinely get requests for information on relatives who had relatives who lived in this building, and they want to know more. And we'll talk about that. When we go across the hall, figure out how I can show you. I had a recent request about a woman who lived here briefly, but then she was transferred to Toledo State Mental Hospital, and she has a very interesting story. Again, if you know anyone who has questions related to somebody who they think may have lived in this building or applied for relief, please send them to me. I am always willing to take a look, because a lot of times we do find something and people are very excited to be connected to their family members who lived here in this building. This is just another listing of some of the other things that we do have here in our archives. A lot of sheet music, a lot of 78 records, but again, I have worked extensively with the Sound Recording Library at BGSU to try to thin out our collection and fill in their collection, because I am a huge advocate that, our stuff is really good when we're developing exhibits or we're answering specific questions for an exhibit, but it does the most good when it's available to researchers. And so, since we do not have an archivist on staff, I'm always willing to partner with these organizations and make our stuff available to them. We have various clubs and organizations, books and pamphlets, brochures, some personal journals. We do have some sewing patterns. We have a lot of maps, a lot of very interesting maps. And just an FYI, if you're not aware, the Wood County Engineering Office has a lot of the similar maps. They are scanned and on their website, and they're very, very helpful. We've often get requests from the environmental history class at BGSU. Dr. Amilcar Chalou, he likes to look at the different oil fields in Wood County, and I was able to work with Brenda Ransom, who's in the records office, and then Julie Baumgartner when she was a reporter, and we had that digitally uploaded for him and sent to him, so that he didn't always have to message me every semester for these oil maps. And so that was a nice collaboration between us and Wood County offices. We do have some military items from all the wars. Probably World War I, World War II are going to be the strongest collection of military paraphernalia that we have. Like any library, we have a ton of postcards, a ton of greeting cards. We have an entire room of township school memorabilia, and that is one of the strongest collections that we have. We, of course, have our institutional archives, which is the history of this building as it has become a museum. We have information on different banks and banking. We have advertising materials, marriage certificates, baptismal certificates, scrapbooks, etc. It's a lot. Marissa, if you're ready to go across the hall. And
Yep,
if you have,
I'm ready.
okay.
Just
And if
make
you
sure
have,
turn the volume down on your computer
Right.
Just so we don't get an echo going once we get out in the hallway.
And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to, again, send me an email or give me a call about what's available and how we can help you. Because like I said, even if I'm not able to answer a question specifically, I am always willing to give you information on who can help you. So let me turn this down. All right.
And then make sure to unshare your screen. Holly, you got to unshare your screen.
All right, everyone. So our archive is just 3 rooms across.
Hold on, let's see. I don't think it. Can see Holly standing in front of the door now, or do you still see her desk?
I can see Holly in front of the door
Okay.
on your screen, but not on her screen.
Okay, so you do see Holly?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
All right. So our archives are located on the 2nd floor of the West Wing. So if you know where my office is, or you come into the museum, you would come up the West Wing stairs and find me, and our stuff is across the hall. So this is the first room. This is, we have a section over here. This is all reference materials. This isn't part of our collection, but this used to be in a different office down the hall, and it made sense for it to be all together because sometimes when I'm doing research, it's good to have these things. Again, we don't have an archivist on staff. That is an entirely different skill set. And so to have a research type room is not necessarily feasible. This here is all of our school and textbooks. As you can see, we went through and we know the different subjects. And I really like to use this. I do mentor students from the BGSU graduate department, their history department, and they do a practicum, and they also have a local history class. Dr. Becky Mancuso, who is also a board member, she teaches that class. She's always looking for new and innovative things for students to do. And I have for years said that students should come over here and use our school books. And there's a couple of different things. There's a lot of debate in curriculum now, looking at curriculum of the time periods in which these school books were used. If you open up, let's see, any of these books here, a lot of times you'll have names inside the book. Now, actually, it's funny that we have this one because Dewey Fuller was a huge donator of objects to the collections here at the Wood County Museum. But again, this is where our connection with Wood County genealogy comes into play, because a student comes to me and they say, I have this local history project, and I give them this idea of looking at our textbooks. They can deepen their knowledge and their research abilities by now going over and visiting our pals at Wood County Genealogy and doing some research on Dewey. You know, he was a very influential person here in the Wood County community. He was part of the former Wood County Historical Society as it was when he started it in the 70s and 80s. And so now your textbooks are more than just books, right? They've become part of local history. One thing I do like to tell students is that, you know, in history school, we're always talking about secondary and primary research materials. It's interesting to think about how a textbook goes from being a secondary resource material to becoming a primary resource material object. And so while linear thinking, okay, these are books for education, there's so much more than that. So as you can see, like I said, we have a lot, and they're categorized for what it is that we've been donated and how to use them. Another part of that is we do have some books based in literature. And I really like to, again, think about how we use these in non-traditional ways, right? We also have a bunch of directories. Now, some of these directories are duplicated at the downtown library in the local history room and the Center for Archival Collections at BGSU, but we have stuff, they have stuff. Sometimes we have what they don't. And so again, it's good that we have these people from their organizations on our collections committee, because then we can help when there's a research question. I had said before that we have an abundance of medical books and journals. It is one of my long-term goals to do an updated medical exhibit. And so I think that these will be very useful and helpful for when we're doing that type of research. All of our local history books here, and I use this stuff all the time. We probably get donation requests for the 1897 Wood County book at least 3 to 4 a month. We have 12 copies of it. I think that they made this book in abundance, but it's one of those things where it is a great resource and people are routinely, either they have it or they're asking for it. So this is something I know that all of our local friends at different libraries, they have it, but they're also pretty worn out. So if it's something that you need for research, we do have it. Probably the shining star of everything that we have in our collection are our infirmary records. And this isn't everything, because some of it's in my office. I use it quite a bit. Everything that you see has been inventoried, and we do have an inventory of all of our applications for relief and the type of relief given, because if Marissa can show you here, all of these boxes are filled with applications for people who applied for assistance, but not everybody lived here. Probably the vast majority of people who applied for assistance in our records received outdoor relief, but still, people who come to us with questions, they don't know that. They know of some association with the county home. So this has been monumentally helpful to have it organized in this fashion. And then especially with us putting in the monument at the cemetery, working with genealogy, we know who these people are. We know a little bit about their lives, and it really helps answer questions, because we've had, ever since that monument went in and we've done for comfort and convenience, an awful lot of questions about the people who lived here. And I love answering them because there's such interesting lives in these boxes. This here would be all of our Bibles and religious materials, some autograph books. And I don't know if any of you attended Daniel Hergert's talk on religion. This is what he used to formulate his talk. Obviously, all of our magazines, not too many. Again, this is something where if people come to us, I usually am in contact with people at the Pop Culture Library at the CAC, because this is something that researchers are going to use in abundance way more than they're going to use here. And then again, we've got journals and ledger books from various businesses here in Wood County and surrounding areas. But this here is more like the book archives for the museum itself. As we go through, we have a lot of ephemera and really miscellaneous things. Girl Scout information, travel, railroads. We have some sewing patterns, the smaller maps, etc. I've used quite a bit of this stuff when I've created exhibits. I think that people have a fascination, even with something as simple as just looking at a map and seeing how times have changed, road names have changed. The people on the maps, just doing a little bit of research on them. This section here is part of our institutional archives. So when I started, a lot of this information was all over this building. And you have to have an archives of both the history of the site when it ran as the infirmary and as it runs as the museum. And this is something that we use quite a bit, actually, when we are looking back to try to figure out what previous directors and employees did to manage the site. We're in this a lot. And it's great that there was some thought to save it. And now that it's somewhat organized, we can come up here and pull one of the drawings or plans when we have questions about what previous administrations did.
Sure. Open one.
Now, this one here. Yeah. Drawings, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, let's see. So this is the first floor. So when you walk in the museum, this is the where you come to.
This information that we have, a lot of it was done when this building became a museum, but we do have a box of infirmary records that talk about updates from about 1940 up until about 1980, a lot of the contracts. And actually that's pretty good because there's stuff on electricity, especially plumbing. Plumbing is an issue because plumbing was installed in this building, I believe, in around 1945. And so there weren't necessarily the rules about plumbing back then as there are now. So there's a lot of lines that go nowhere. So it's good that we have this stuff. Music that I was talking about, a lot of 78s. One other thing that's very interesting, if you can point down there, Marissa, is that over the years, we have dug in the yard, and anytime we find any sort of artifact, we keep it. We do have an institutional archives that keeps anything that is found in the yard that potentially could have been associated when this organization ran as the infirmary. And a lot of photos. This is an ongoing project. We have a great relationship with the Center for Archival Collections. One of the collections that we do own is called the Max Schaefer Collection. This man was a barber in Signet, and he had a love industry in things here. We are going to people, places, and things come down and working with BGSU on getting all the rest of his images digitized because we get a lot of requests for oil related photos. And so we're hoping that this can help our researcher get things that they have never seen before. This room in particular, again, this is the rest of our institutional archives, lots of photos. So anything we do often we have
Marissa, we're really
to go
buffering
back
this
and
room.
refer to what previous directors.
Oh, okay. Let's go back.
All right.
Okay.
Is it better over here? Can you hear us?
Yes, yep,
Okay, we will stay closer to this room.
alrighty, thanks.
So what I was saying before is I hope that you guys were able to all see those boxes. We do refer back a lot to what previous directors and staff did in terms of building maintenance or decisions that were made with collections management or with different types of events. And it's great that we have an opportunity to save all of that information. And that is something else that you would find in our archives. Unfortunately, we can't go in that other room because there's some really great stuff in there, but we do have, and I talked about it previously, military related objects. When I created the World War I exhibit, I was fortunate enough to become in contact with Ray D. Avery's family. Ray Avery was a lawyer here in town, but he was also the captain of Company H here in Bowling Green. And his granddaughter had tons of information. She had her grandfather was very proud of the time that he spent in the military, and he saved everything. And so we have enlistment papers and records for a lot of local Bowling Green men who enlisted in World War I. And if you go around the town, like the Paulad VFW, or some of the street names, these men were all in World War I, and we have a lot of the records here about their time in the service. And so it's really great that we were able to make this connection with our exhibit. And then out of that, these family members decided that it was not something that they necessarily had any connection to, but they knew would be a value to the people of Wood County. So a long-term goal, because like I said before, we want to make things available for people to be able to research. And like I said, we're not a research facility, but working with BGSU, eventually getting these things digitized and in a location where the general public can use them. It's just something that we're not to that point yet. Believe me, I have definitely been thinking about it, and it is part of a long-term goal. So there is another place I would like to take you guys, and hopefully the phone cooperates.
It might not cooperate because of how far, if it started buffering there. But if you have something you want to show, you could probably bring it to here. Like if you wanted to grab something, you could bring it here.
Yeah, we can try that.
Okay.
Let's try that.
So while we wait, different books that we have. So here's some chemistry books, science and biology, music and theater. There's hygiene. There's this cute little adorable Songs of the Seasons book. Let's see if I can get this open. Look how tiny it is. It's adorable. I'm right here.
So we are very fortunate that the citizens of Wood County have so graciously donated so many objects related to the township schools. This is something that since I've been curator, I routinely get questions about township schools. It is definitely something on my future. I would like to create an exhibit list on this. And unfortunately, we cannot go into our alumni room, technical difficulties, but we do have an abundance of yearbooks. Now I might want to put an asterisk on that. We have what people donated to us. If we don't have it, the Wood County District Public Library might have it, but it's one of those things where if you or someone you know is looking for a yearbook, to always have them call us first. Because sometimes people show up and we don't have it, and we don't have them on exhibit anymore. But I am very willing to contact my colleagues in search of whatever it is that you're looking for. I brought this up because it's football season, but we do have some sporting photos. We have trophies. We have graduation announcements and diplomas and homework. We were very fortunate. There was a former board member and longtime museum member, Nancy Buchanan. She and her mother, Pearl Boyer, were both school teachers in Weston and Hoytville, and these women saved everything. Nancy was a genealogist, and we have her schoolwork for when she was a student in Hoytville. We have a good majority of the assignments that she gave students. They would save photos of every student they had when they were teachers, different types of magazines and ledger books and school board minutes. And so, just building those relationships with these people in our Wood County community led to the us acquiring these things that Nancy and her mother had kept for so many years. And so it's so great because a lot of times these parts of Wood County are not always at the forefront because these places are so small. And so we want to make sure that we're always including them in what it is that we're doing. Just an example, we have a yearbook here. And then this right here, we have a lot of school play books, a lot of different things. And you could see who, let's see if we've got a list of who it is. It's, see, they wrote in here who played who. Now this is interesting because this actually was a recent donation. Beth was played by Laverne. This is Laverne Snyder. She is a former county home employee. She worked here in the 1940s and she met and married her husband, Harold Patton. And her daughter just recently donated this to our collection. So as you can see, we do have a nice abundance of things here at the museum. And like I had said before, there is never any harm in calling to find out if we can help assist you. We are not an open searchable archives, but obviously always available to answer your questions. So I want to go back to our seat and if there's any questions. I think I'm back on here. Okay. You guys, can you guys see the spreadsheet that I have up yet?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can see it.
Can you guys see the spreadsheet?
We can see it. It's a little small, but we can see it.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. That makes it bigger. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. I just wanted to give an overview, just so you had some idea, the abundance of items that are in the collection. And luckily, we had a very dedicated volunteer who for a couple of years came in here and documented across the hall what is in our collection. So there's lots of possibilities to learn from what's in here. And then what's in red are things that have been added. You guys can see. I don't know if this is a good time, if anyone wants to ask any questions.
How long does it usually take for you to put an exhibit together? I know how much work it takes to collect all this information. It's amazing to me that you guys have it so well organized, but I was wondering how long it would take for a collection to be, or a display to be curated.
Well, there's 2 exhibits that I created that were the entirety of the museum. So that was 20 rooms and they took about 2 years. The longest exhibit was for comfort and convenience. And that took almost 3 years to do because it was a statewide exhibit. We are currently working on a wedding exhibit and we have been working on it now for at least 5 months getting preliminary information together. So it takes me anywhere between 8 months to a year to do. This particular exhibit's not opening until April. And I now have helpers. I have Chris Jones is our museum technician, and he also has experience in theater set design. And so he's helping me to build some of the exhibit spaces. And then Alexandra Hutchings, I was able to hire her as part of my grant to help with the research and with dressing of all of these mannequins for the wedding dress. So yeah, the shortest exhibit was probably my Mary and Carl Bach story, because it was one case, but it probably took me 6 months to do it.
Holly, this is Paula.
Hi, Paula.
Yeah, hi. I cleaned out my mother's attic in 2001, which was well before your time. But I'm wondering if there's similar records that, like your spreadsheet, that would have recorded those items.
Oh, I'm sure. It's probably on there.
Good to know.
Yes. Now, you bring up a good point. We do not throw things away. We don't get rid of stuff. There is a process for deaccessioning, meaning removing something from a collection. This has to have committee approval, and then it has to be made a recommendation to our 15-member board. And this is very selective. This is not something where we just decide, hey, we don't have room for it, we're going to get rid of it. It is something that fundamentally does not fit within our collection. And I'll give you an example. When I became curator, the old collections policy stated that we were going to collect everything from Northwest Ohio. And given the fact that we don't have enough space, let me see if I can. We don't have enough space, and there's other museums that collect from Northwest Ohio. We made a decision to do a preliminary search of things within our collection and deaccession these items and return them to the counties or cities or villages that they would be more logical living in. And so that's what we did. But very rarely do I ever go through with the paper collection and deaccession at this point. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Very interesting when you go to the museum, and now to see all the behind the scenes of what you have to go through to put on an exhibit is really neat. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I'm really glad that you guys were able to log on. Yeah, this was supposed to be an in-person exhibit, our talk. But again, if you ever have any questions or you want to see it firsthand, you know where to find me, and I'm happy to show you around.
Once again, this will be recorded and put on the library's website and our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. So if anybody wants to watch it again or recommend it to a friend, we'll have it there.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Yes, thanks, Paula.
All right, thank you for everyone who tuned in to join us today. Let me turn my camera back around. There we go. Thanks for everyone who joined us today. Like Holly from the North Baltimore Public Library said, this has been recorded and it will be up on the North Baltimore Public Library's YouTube page, and the museum, we will share it as well. So if you happen to miss a part, or if something cut out, just tune into that. And thank you again to our sponsors, Edwin and Irma Wolf and Lynn and Betty Wineland, for their generous support, as well as all of the T-Card season holders for their support as well. We do have, like I said at the beginning of the talk, we do have one more talk scheduled this year for our virtual history series, and that is on November 9th, and that is with Hal Brown. So you can see more of that coming out in our newsletters that the museum sends out and on our social media pages as well. If anyone doesn't have any more questions for Holly, we will go ahead and end this talk, and we will see everyone in December. Thank you.